Hi there, welcome to Penn Central 99's channel. On this edition, we're going to work on the transition from Sidewinder Junction over here to Thumbtack Canyon. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the transition between Sidewinder Junction and Thumbtack Canyon, and when I originally drew the lines for the outer main of this section, I apparently was a little off on my radius because as you can see here, the inside edge, we've got a lot of roadbed, cork roadbed left over, and on the outside here I have very little. This is the natural curvature of the track, the flex track between the two areas, and as you can see, I'm a little off on my line, so what we need to do is we need to pull the track up, we need to pull the cork roadbed up and reapply this so we can have a much smoother, easier transition between the two areas. One of the other advantages to putting your track down temporarily before doing anything else and running your locomotives is to see what happens. Now, as you can see with this close-up here, between this is the turnout and this is a section of flex track. Right here, you can see where the joint begins to curve, I've got some kinks. Okay, they're not really overly bad, but what that does is that creates a problem, especially for your longer locomotives and rolling stock, those with 6 axles. It wants to kink and bind. Now, when the locomotive is running in this direction, especially that big SD70 ACE with 6 axles, it's fine. There's a little bit of a jump there, but the locomotive runs okay. But when I have the locomotive traveling in this direction, because of this kink here on the inside, it wants to keep that front axle continuing in this motion, and what ends up is I have a derailment here, and when the wheels get off of the track I also have a short. So what we need to do is when we take this off, I'm going to put feeder wires here, but since I'm soldering it, I'm going to solder this straight before I begin the curve. This area here is about the center of the curve for the transition between Sidewinder Junction and Thumbtack Canyon, but you can see here this is the center line of the cork roadbed, which in this area runs just about on the inside of the inside rail. So what I need to do is I need to move the cork roadbed out about the half of a width of the track. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up all these thumbtacks because it's temporary. Pull up the cork roadbed, move it out, reapply it with caulk. Although I use caulk to secure the cork down to the foam insulation, it'll come up pretty quick using a putty knife or some sort of flat surface to just slide it in between there, and this will peel right up. Now I'm going to reuse these pieces because there's really nothing wrong with them. But what I'm going to do before I do that is make sure that I have somewhat of a nice flat and smooth surface. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not. But you don't want it too rough and too uneven, otherwise it's going to affect laying the track and the movement of your trains over top of it. One of the things that you can do to help clean up old scenery or ground foam, or if you're like us, we have cats in the family and we all know how cats like to get on the layout. What I use is a lint brush or a roller brush. I can just move this over the area, especially where I'm going to work, and you would be surprised how much loose stuff this lint brush will pick up. Kind of helps keep things clean a little bit, and that's just a little something that I learned while doing, especially with cats. So helps keep things clean. Now, going back to replacing or relocating the roadbed, is this was the center line of the other one, but you can see it created kinks. So what I need to do is move that about the thickness, or the half of the width of the track, which is about 3/8 of an inch. So coming over here to the center point, coming in about 3/8 of an inch, I'm going to make a mark right there. That's going to be where the new center line is. So what we need to do is redraw a new radius, and this ruler, the metal ruler, is somewhat flexible, so I'm going to use that to redraw this. I have the new center line drawn. I have the old caulk cleaned off of most of the old caulk cleaned off the back of the cork roadbed. It's not perfect, but it's not too overly out of control. The other nice thing is it'll help give something to bond to when we put the new caulk down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run a bead of caulk just on the inside of this edge. I'm not going to bother to flatten it out with the the putty knife, because when I lay the cork roadbed down, it'll flatten it and smooth it out. Nice bead all the way over to here, and to just hold it into place while I secure it, I'm going to use some nails. And once you start to do this, the roadbed, the cork roadbed, will start to relax, making it a little bit easier to work with. And you can see I'm putting the cork down from the inside out, because what it's done is it's helping to flatten out that caulk that you're using to adhere it to the pink foam. I already know that I'm going to have a gap on this end because I've increased the radius of the curve, but we can live with that. We'll just take that caulk and we'll put it in here. We're going to use it again. And what you can do is you can use your fingers to help lay that down and lay that flat. Another bead. Get going too fast, the caulk starts to pull away. Wants to keep up with the gun. Just lay that in there. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be something. I'm not too overly concerned with this gap in between the roadbed here, because I can fill that in with other pieces of cork or just leave it the way it is, so you have a nice transition in between, because this starts to decline into a lower area. And there we go. Now we just need to probably get some weight on there to help hold that down for the next day. A couple of bricks ought to help handle that. I'm going to try and do a couple of things at once here. As you can see, I've relocated the nails that I was using to hold the cork roadbed down to the sides of the roadbed, because I want to connect this section of flex track and get it soldered straight before I start to curve it over to the next area. I think if I solder it straight, the transition is going to be a lot better. Plus, when I weight it down, I can weight it down to let the roadbed and the track dry at the same time. Okay, if you remember from the other videos, white is on the inside. Gonna just tuck this feeder wire in behind that rail joiner. nice gap. Let's try a little something different here. We'll come in and heat from the back side. And we'll put the solder on in the front. See the solder starting to flow in there. Plus, we're not mounting any ties. Now that we have a pretty good joint here with feeder connections and soldered, the next step will be to put some caulk down on this roadbed so we can get the track secured. So I'm just going to spread out and use my putty knife to flatten that out. Paste or icing a cake. If you don't think you have enough, you can always go back and put a little bit more down. But you don't want it too thick that it's pushing up in between the rails. This is a full piece of flex track all the way over to this turnout. This is also a full piece of flex track over here to the helix. So what we need to do is we need to custom fit a piece of track in between these 2 points. So what I'm just going to take some flex track here and I'm going to lay it in. I'm going to mark it. I'm going to cut it with some rail nippers. I'm going to file them flat and then I'm going to stick them into place. Okay, just to give you an idea how I custom fit track, what I just use is a pair of wire cutters, and after I mark the rail with a Sharpie where I want my to make my cut, I use my wire cutters here to make that nip the rail right where my mark is, and then after I separate the track, I just use my bench grinder here and very carefully on each rail grind it flat and smooth. You don't want to do it too fast or too rapidly because you'll heat up this rail. And when you heat up the rail, you're going to start to warp it and ruin its strength. So you just got to be nice and gentle and slow when you grind that down flat. And after I grind that flat, I just take a file and I file the inside and the outside of the rail to remove any burrs before I slip it together. Okay, another trick that I'm employing, especially since I'm going to be sliding this rail into this section here, is I left these two ties and spikes in place. Here I have shaved off these plastic spikes, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my rail joiner on here so that when I slide it together, we should have a nice smooth fit. So when that slides together, is this rail is going to go into those spikes and then slide into that rail joiner for somewhat of a snug fit. And there we have our custom fit piece. All I need to do is add some feeder wires. I'm going to leave this joint here unsoldered and unconnected to allow for expansion, but there we pretty much have our outside main of the Thumbtack Canyon. Well, that pretty much does it for this session. I hope you learned something and I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thanks for watching.